Imagine this. You are standing in a small room in Turin, Italy, in the first week of January 1889. Across from you, a man with an enormous mustache and eyes that have seen too much is slumped in a chair. His name is Friedrich Nietzsche, and he has just collapsed in the street after throwing his arms around the neck of a beaten horse. He is sobbing. Hours later, he will write his final fragmented letters, signing them not with his own name, but with cryptic titles, The Crucified and Dionysus. His mind, which had scaled the highest peaks of human thought, has plunged into an abyss of silence from which it will never return. He will live out his remaining 11 years as an invalid, cared for by his mother and sister, a ghost in his own body. But here is the paradox that grips us by the throat. In the years leading up to this collapse, Nietzsche was not writing the ramblings of a fading mind. He was constructing what he intended to be his magnum opus, a radical, world-shattering philosophy that he believed would split the history of humanity in two. He called it the will to power, and he never finished it. It exists as a mountain of notebooks, a chaotic explosion of 1,067 aphorisms, plans, and fragments that he obsessively compiled, discarded, and rearranged until the very day the words failed him. So, which is it? Was this the masterpiece of a prophet? The final, coherent vision of a man who saw the abyss more clearly than anyone before him? Or was it merely the debris field of a brilliant mind collapsing under the weight of its own intensity? The scattered blueprints for a tower that was never meant to be built? This is the locked door at the heart of modern philosophy. The book you hold in your hands, the one that bears the title The Will to Power, is a construction. After Nietzsche's death, his sister Elizabeth, a woman with her own nationalist and anti-Semitic agenda, took these fragments and assembled them into a book he never authorized. She shaped them, ordered them, and presented them as his definitive system. For decades, the world believed this was Nietzsche's final testament. But it was a forgery, a philosophical Frankenstein's monster stitched together from the corpse of his real work. And yet, even knowing this, the fragments themselves burn with a terrifying light. They contain ideas so potent they would be credited and blamed for shaping the 20th century. Wars, revolutions, art, and the very definition of human potential. Why does this book, even in its corrupted form, refuse to die? Why do we keep returning to this pile of intellectual ruins? Because within these fragments lies a question that stalks you in your quietest moments. In a world where God is dead, where the old moral codes have crumbled into dust, what gives your life meaning? What gives you the right to exist, to strive, to dominate your own fate? Nietzsche's answer, buried in these chaotic notes, is a hammer. It claims that everything you believe about good and evil, about truth, about progress, is a lie designed to weaken you, a lie designed to make you comfortable in your mediocrity. And he offers, in its place, not a new set of rules, but a terrifying gift, the challenge to become who you are. The central mystery of the will to power is not what it says, but what it is. It is the record of a man trying to think his way through the collapse of everything. It is not a book of answers, but a battlefield of questions. And before we can step onto that battlefield, we must understand the nature of the enemy Nietzsche identified. We must understand the hidden sickness he diagnosed in the soul of the modern world. If this glimpse into Nietzsche's shattered masterpiece has gripped you, hit that subscribe button now, because we're about to descend deeper into the fragments and uncover the diagnosis. That explains why you feel so empty in a world of plenty. You have felt it. That quiet, creeping suspicion that the world you live in is built on a lie, that the values you were taught to revere, kindness, humility, selflessness, equality, somehow leave you feeling empty rather than fulfilled. You chase success, love, meaning, only to find that the moment you grasp them, they turn to ash in your hands. Nietzsche felt this too. But unlike you, he refused to look away. He traced this emptiness back to its source, and what he found was a poison so pervasive so deeply embedded in the architecture of your mind that you cannot see it any more than a fish sees the water it swims in. He called this poison nihilism, and he declared it to be the hidden destiny of the West. But here is the terrifying insight that sets the will to power apart from every philosophy before it. Nihilism is not a mistake. It is not a correctable error in thinking. It is the logical conclusion of 2,000 years of truth-seeking. You have been marching toward this abyss since the moment Plato declared that the world you see, feel, and bleed in is merely a shadow of a true world somewhere beyond the clouds. Christianity inherited this lie, promising that your suffering on earth would be compensated in a heaven you cannot see. Science, in turn, inherited it, promising that one day, reason would unlock the final secrets of the universe and give you mastery over existence itself. But what happens when you no longer believe in heaven? What happens when science reveals that the universe has no purpose, no direction, no concern for your happiness? What happens when you realize that the true world was a fiction invented by the weak to protect themselves from the terror of the real one? Nietzsche's diagnosis cuts to the bone. You have killed God, but you have not yet faced the consequences. You still cling to the ghost of his morality. You still speak of truth and justice and human rights as if they were engraved on stone tablets from Sinai, when in reality, they are nothing more than interpretations, perspectives, invented by specific people at specific moments in history to serve specific needs. The need to control the strong, the need to comfort the suffering, the need to make existence bearable for those too weak to bear it alone. This is the hidden problem. Not that you have lost your faith, but that you have lost your faith and you refuse to admit it. You live in a graveyard of absolutes, pretending the corpses still breathe. You call yourself secular, modern, enlightened, yet you chase the same illusions, happiness, progress, universal morality, as if they still had power over you. And so you drift. You medicate your emptiness with distraction. You scroll, you consume, you accumulate, you perform. But beneath the noise, there is a void that will not be filled. Because Nietzsche saw the truth that you are running from. When you kill God, you do not just lose your religion. You lose the very ground beneath your feet. You lose the illusion that life has any inherent meaning, any cosmic purpose, any ultimate justification. The question he leaves burning in your chest is this: can you survive the death of God? Or will you, like the modern world itself, collapse into despair, hedonism, or the desperate search for new idols to worship? The answer, hidden in the fragments of the will to power, demands that you first understand something far more uncomfortable, that the morality you call good may actually be the very thing that is destroying you. Look around you, not at your room, but at the world you inhabit. The news feeds you a constant stream of outrage and catastrophe. Your social media rewards you for performing virtue and punishing enemies. Your relationships are increasingly mediated by screens. Your intimacy replaced by algorithms designed to keep you scrolling, not connecting. You feel more connected than any generation in history, yet you have never been more alone. This is not an accident. This is the consequence of nihilism finally working itself out in the flesh and blood of human civilization. Nietzsche saw this coming with terrifying clarity. He called it the last man, the final product of a world that has abandoned all higher striving. The last man is not evil. He is not a monster. He is comfortable. He wants his little pleasure, his little security, his little warmth. He blinks when you speak of greatness, of sacrifice, of creating something that will outlast your brief flicker of consciousness. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? The last man asks, and he blinks. We have invented happiness, he says, and he blinks again. This is you. This is the future you are sleepwalking into. A world of maximal comfort and minimal meaning. A world where the highest aspiration is to avoid pain and the deepest fear is to stand out, to challenge, to risk being destroyed for something worth dying for. But the consequences run deeper than individual ennui. They shape the very structure of society. Because when the old moral absolutes collapse, something must rush in to fill the vacuum. And what rushes in, Nietzsche warns, is not freedom, but the will to power of the weakest, the resentful. Those who could not create their own values now dedicate themselves to tearing down anyone who tries. You see this everywhere. The outrage mobs, the cancel culture, the endless competition to claim victimhood. These are not moral movements. They are weapons of the weak against the strong. They are the revenge of those who cannot create against those who dare to try. Consider the ideologies that shape your world. Socialism, democracy, feminism, human rights. Nietzsche does not attack them as wrong, but as symptoms. They are the political expression of a morality that prizes the herd over the individual, the weak over the strong, the comfortable over the great. They promise equality, but deliver only mediocrity. They promise justice, but deliver only the organized resentment of those who cannot rise. And here is the cruelest irony. You participate in this system willingly. You call yourself compassionate for defending the powerless. You call yourself progressive for championing equality. But Nietzsche's ghost whispers a darker question. Are you compassionate, or are you afraid? Afraid to stand alone? Afraid to affirm your own desires, your own ambition, your own ruthless will to rise above the herd? The world shaped by nihilism is a world of quiet desperation masked by noise. It is a world where you are free to do anything, yet find nothing worth doing. It is a world where the highest praise is to be nice, and the deepest sin is to be judgmental. And in this world, something precious is dying: the capacity for greatness, the willingness to sacrifice, the courage to say, "I will," in the face of an indifferent universe. But Nietzsche does not leave you in this graveyard. He forces you to confront one final, unbearable truth before he offers you a way out. You cannot solve this problem with the tools that created it. You cannot cure nihilism with more kindness, more democracy, more progress. These are the disease, not the cure. The path forward requires something far more radical, something that, once seen, cannot be unseen. It requires you to become something you have never been. You've seen how nihilism shapes your world without you even knowing it. Like this video and drop a comment. Do you recognize the last man in yourself? Or are you ready to become something more? Subscribe so you don't miss the prescription. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast, empty desert. Behind you lies the ruined temple of every god you ever believed in. Ahead stretches nothing but sand and sky and the scorching indifference of the sun. This is where Nietzsche finds you. This is the wasteland of nihilism. And now, from the fragments of his unfinished masterpiece, he offers you not a map, but a hammer. Not a new faith, but the terrifying freedom to become the one who creates faith. His prescription is called the will to power, but you must understand what this truly means, because it has been twisted into almost everything it is not. The will to power is not merely the drive for political dominance, not the crude lust for money or control over others. These are only its shallowest, most pathetic expressions. The will to power is deeper than survival, more fundamental than happiness. It is the instinctive drive of all life to grow, to expand, to overcome itself, to pour its strength into the world and say, "I was here. I mattered. I left my mark on eternity." You see it in the oak tree that shatters the sidewalk to reach the sun. You see it in the artist who stars in a garret to bring a vision into being. You see it in the lover who risks everything to declare their devotion. You see it in yourself, in those moments when you forget to be comfortable, forget to be safe, and reach for something higher, harder, more demanding of your deepest self. But here is where Nietzsche's prescription becomes radical, even terrifying. To escape the wasteland, you must first embrace it. You must drink the cup of nihilism to its dregs. You must look into the abyss and see that there is no cosmic justice, no divine plan, no ultimate meaning waiting to be discovered. And then, in that moment of absolute despair, you must do what humanity has never done before. You must create meaning with your own hands, out of your own blood, and affirm it with every fiber of your being. This is what Nietzsche calls the Bermensch, the overman. Not a superhuman with a cape, but a human being who has overcome the human condition, who has looked into the void and said, "Even so, I will. Even so, I create. Even so, I affirm this life, this pain, this joy, this entire chaotic mess, and I will it to return eternally, again and again, forever." The eternal return. This is Nietzsche's ultimate test, the thought experiment that separates the last man from the overman. Imagine a demon crept into your loneliest loneliness and said, "This life, as you live it now, with every pain, every joy, every humiliation, every moment of, you will live it again, exactly as it is, not once, but countless times, for eternity." Would you throw yourself down, gnashing your teeth, cursing the demon who spoke? Or would you answer, "You are a god. I have never heard anything more divine. This is the prescription, not to escape life, but to love it so completely, so ferociously, that you would choose it again, exactly as it is, for all eternity. Not despite the suffering, but because of it. Because the suffering is the price of growth. Because the pain is the chisel that sculpts your soul. Because a life without struggle, without risk, without the constant overcoming of resistance, is not a life worth living. The will to power is not a doctrine to be believed. It is a test to be passed. And passing it requires everything you have. It requires you to become the poet of your own existence, the sculptor of your own values, the creator of a meaning that dies with you, but blazes brilliantly while you live. But before you can take up this hammer, you must understand the final, deepest truth Nietzsche buried in his fragments, the truth that transforms everything. You have walked with Nietzsche to the edge of the abyss. You have felt the death of God in your bones. You have seen the wasteland of nihilism and tasted the bitter draught of the eternal return. And now, standing among the fragments of his unfinished masterpiece, you must face the truth that transforms everything. The will to power was never meant to be a book at all. This is the revelation that shatters every interpretation. Nietzsche did not collapse because his philosophy was incomplete. He collapsed because it was unfinishable. The very nature of what he was attempting, to capture the fluid, chaotic, self-overcoming essence of life in the static prison of words, was a contradiction so immense that it finally broke him. The mountain of fragments, the endless revisions, the obsessively reorganized aphorisms, these are not the signs of a failing mind. They are the fingerprints of a man wrestling with a truth that cannot be contained. What truth? That there is no final truth. That the will to power is not a doctrine you can believe, but a reality you are. You are not a reader of this philosophy. You are the philosophy, whether you know it or not. Every desire you have ever felt, every ambition that has stirred your blood, every moment you have reached beyond yourself toward something higher, harder, more demanding, this is the will to power moving through you. You cannot learn it from a book. You can only awaken to it within yourself. And here is the deepest cut. The book you have been seeking, the definitive statement, the final word, it does not exist. It never did. Elizabeth's forged edition, the one that shaped a century of misinterpretation, was a lie. But the genuine fragments, the raw notes, the unpolished explosions of insight, these are more honest than any finished work could ever be. They do not give you answers. They give you questions. They do not hand you a system. They hand you a hammer and point you toward everything in yourself that is still unbuilt, still uncreated, still waiting to be overcome. So what does it mean to close the covers of this non-book? What does Nietzsche leave you with, now that the fragments have scattered at your feet? He leaves you with a choice, the same choice that faced him in that Turin room before the silence fell. You can look at the chaos of existence, the suffering, the meaninglessness, the terrifying freedom, and you can shrink from it. You can retreat into the comfortable lies of the last man, into the distractions and petty pleasures of the herd. You can blink when greatness is mentioned and call your smallness happiness. Or you can do what Nietzsche did, not in his collapse, but in his striving. You can say yes, yes to the pain, yes to the struggle, yes to the endless, exhausting, glorious task of becoming who you are. You can take up the hammer of your own will and begin the work that no one can do for you, the work of carving meaning from the indifferent marble of the universe. The will to power is not a destination. It is the journey itself. It is the climb that never ends, the peak that recedes as you approach, the star that guides you not because you will ever reach it, but because reaching for it makes you more than you were. Nietzsche's final, unfinished masterpiece is not the book in your hands. It is the life you are living right now. The question is not whether you understand his philosophy. The question is whether you have the courage to live it, to affirm, to create, to will your own fate with such ferocity that when the demon comes to whisper in your loneliest loneliness, you will not curse him. You will answer with every fiber of your being, was that life? Well then, once more,